Ah, a couple of British YouTubers are going to take part in that thing YMS started. Neat, so I bet Alex from IHE will know everything about the 90s TV show called PINGU. Well, Caddy's decided to jump in on this particular train as well, and I'm sure he's going to talk about some of the really messed up stuff like this. I mean, there's so many TV shows around the time in the UK that are absolutely bonkers. Like, what has he got? Oh, good choice. The Animals of Farthing Wood is absolutely disastrous. I remember watching that stuff as well. I think I only had one VHS of it, but good God, it was terrifying. And then you're going to follow it up with PINGU. Okay.
Have you ever thought like this? How strange things happen? Are you going round a twist? Have you ever thought like this?
Was anyone paying attention at the end of the 90s, or was it just me? Or am I the mad one that was thinking that stuff like the Demon Headmaster or Round the Twist are some of the weirdest imagery I'll likely ever see? Heck, anyone remember Oggy and the Cockroaches? A highly surrealist take on Tom and Jerry, which I don't see anyone ever bother digging into. Sometimes you have to drag up buried trauma yourself. I guess call me the nostalgia Brit. I remember it because I'm a bit older and watched public television in a particular continent at a very select time. When I were but a wee cub, I either levelled up Sparks, my Pikachu, or watched TV. We had only 4 channels, but I'd only watch Channel 4 early in the morning to catch up on really old shows, or stuff they didn't care about. BBC and ITV had after-school slots, one of which morphed into its own separate channel, though the slot still exists because they got to use those sets for something, and Blue Peter used up its budget for the next 2 decades by dressing Matt Baker as Fat Men.
Eat it! I don't care if you're full, just eat it! Eat it! Get yourself an egg and beat it!
But it's these channels I remember seeing some of the things that stuck with me for a long, long time. Now, I would go into Oggy and the Cockroaches here, but I think it needs its own episode. Then how about the Demon Headmaster? Well, no one seems to have given much of a toss about it, so I can't seem to find a readily available source of footage, which means I can't show you Terence Hardiman burrow into your soul with nothing but his eyes. That's fine, because the far more interesting oddity here deserves more of the spotlight. On one hand, I commend the imagination on display. I, hand on heart, cannot think of another show of this kind that attempted storylines like this. Though that might be because almost all of them are bafflingly insane or have horrible connotations. You could play horror music over the top of some scenes only to find it fits way too easily. Nothing else tried these ideas though. Its main competition was, what, Demon Headmaster, which had a brain-eating supercomputer and a snake girl that hatched from an egg because it was a clone of another character, and Terence Hardiman's penance stare, and that was trying to go for a more kids against supervillain thing? Like a proto-Sarah Jane Adventures. Even though they had a modest budget of £24 and a go on the Chuckle Brothers go-kart. Different to its contemporaries, this is actually meant to be a comedy though. It's not really meant to be that scary, which is kind of hard to shove into the brain space as I describe this show. But, well, Round the Twist is an Australian import, kind of like Goosebumps but on poppers. That follows a family from episode to episode. They move into a lighthouse because it looks nice, I guess, and there's some business bod in a horrid suit called Harold Grimble that wants to buy it from them to turn it into a spa or something. Somehow from that, the nightmare begins. The show is normally centred around the kids discovering the latest fever dream the writers cooked up for them. Twins Pete and Linda with little brother Bronson. Now, the episodes I remember start off tame, like Skeleton on the Dunny, which, if you don't speak Australian, is about a spoopy, squarey skeleton that keeps turning up on the house's toilet. But as you go on, the real madness starts to shine through. There is an episode where all inanimate objects begin talking to Bronson. Honestly, this one's kind of fun. If only because it inadvertently has some lovely lines.
But no one will tell me anything. What am I supposed to do? Talk to the walls? Talk to the furniture?
But the cameraman and the keyboard he brought along clearly wants you to.
Wow, that was different. I've been in the worst, in the boat from Italia.
What is it? What's happened?
The lamp's talking and the wardrobe's talking in Italian!
You had a setup for a sneaky IKEA joke by giving something a Swedish accent, and you ripped that possibility from my grasp. How could you? Even better is how Bronson suddenly accepts this by morning, has decided to just roll with his new superpower / psychotic episode, then calmly explains to his family that he hears the voices of inanimate objects.
Guys, I have an announcement to make. I now have the power to talk to things. Tables, chairs, bins, anything. So if you want answers about a big exam coming up, or how certain people feel about you, just ask me.
What am I watching right now? Any other show would have Bronson hide it, but they go for the brutal honesty just to mine it for its comedy with a second of setting it up. Honestly, it kind of works. There is an episode where Pete takes a piss against a tree, and a dryad takes this as a sign of courtship. And impregnates him with a tree spirit baby. She's Australian, because you have Australian tree spirits, apparently. I'm a British accented kitsune, why am I complaining? Anyway, there's this, which is a thing.
Childbirth is very natural. There's no need to be ashamed.
Not natural for a schoolboy to be pregnant. Hey, Twist, I want to talk to you. It's about the mud. And the tree. Yeah. Don't let me, I'm pregnant!
The show knows it's ludicrous, so just leans into it fully. Honestly, it makes it way funnier than I thought it would be for its brash nature and something that other shows of the time wouldn't touch. A schoolboy is pregnant. Where else are you going to find that? Maybe in a bizarro version of Tracy Beaker. But what do you do with that? Well, this show thinks it's a good idea to just let all the characters react to it. For the madness on display, get a nice reaction and have a laugh. Good. If it's at the expense of the main character, so much the better, it seems. How would he even give birth? Oh, they address this. The episode isn't called The Big Burp for nothing.
But Dad, he's not biologically equipped to have babies.
Just tell them it comes out through your mouth.
Through my mouth? Come on, breathe,
Am I doing better than a walrus with teeth yet, One episode has mushrooms in it that can become a temporary copy of anything that's next to them for a small amount of time before bursting into yellow gunge. Even people.
Come on, give them to us. This is your last chance. We're not mucking around. Got it! Got it!
Custodiality. Others sees the adventures of not Pinocchio as an ice cream machine that can become a 17-year-old that looks to be about a foot taller than the rest of the cast. He can produce ice cream from his nose and transforms back into an ice cream machine by the end of the episode. Now, most of the episodes I remember watching happen to be from season 3, and the one which I remember the most is about some maniacs who suck out Pete and Linda's brains, then replaces them with a goofy-looking techno beehive, which happen to have a remote control for their every action, so now they are effectively soulless automatons, with their brains trying desperately to return to their bodies. This show defined the deep end when I was a kid. Yet no one I've talked to remembers it at all. While most other episodes are able to lean on almost entirely their premise to make the episode entertaining, this one has a concept behind it that got executed in the most unintentionally mystifying way possible. It's either creepy to think about too hard or frankly stupid, flip-flopping between both often without paying a blind bit of notice. So if you are watching and actually trying to pay attention, this one's a bit of a trip, honestly. Way more than the others. That is genuinely saying something. We start the episode with Pete and Linda wearing early prototype Oculus Rifts. The idea is that Bronson and a science geekazoid, as the description states, are conducting an experiment into twin telepathy.
Now, the anthonic bronsometer analyzes your typical...
brainwave telepathy. Can twins read each other's minds? Can we please just get on with it?
Now, the headsets have been monitoring your brainwaves all night, so it should be just a matter of taking a few finer readings. We'll need a partial vacuum, so... Nozzle!
Nozzle.
Why? Other than the plot, why do you need anything of what you just said? Why does that make sense that you can't just connect the Commodore 64 you jammed on their heads to another computer? Doesn't it have a little data store or something on it? Or did you stick something up their noses taking the readings, and the helmets that look like something not even Amstrad would sell are just shop dressing? Sod it. One joke they slipped under the censors later.
Right, let's get turned on. The machine, that is.
Bronson and Anthony accidentally create too powerful a vacuum and suck Linda and Pete's brains out of their skulls, flinging them all the way into the axotal tank where they die instantly.
Have you ever felt like this?
Okay, no, not really, but one, old jokes die hard, and two, they never really explain the alternative very well. So, problem number one, because I can't hold back anymore. If you're a kid that hasn't turned his brain off and is watching this, you'll be asking so many questions about this, it's kind of maddening. They're now brainless. How are they alive? Are they alive? Are they just sitting there like idiots? Are they being sustained by the helmets, or is it just what you do when you're brainless? I knew that the brain was pretty bloody important as a kid. Removing that was not a good idea and frightening me a little. This was a little too far. There's brains in a tank that are moving and convulsing. It's unsettling. I think the idea was to be more kooky and wacky, but this comes off like a sock puppet made of offal. I think they meant them to be cute as they shuffle around throughout the episode, but it's still a brain. That doesn't sit right in my head. It's not helped by Tweedledee and Tweedledum's blank staring towards the audience for most of the time. If you're about 10 and trying to watch this, robot people and wiggling organs don't mean happy fun times, unless you're looking to expand your range of nightmares. Moving on, Anthony has to fix the machine, so Brendan gets to take a remote control for his brother and sister and take them home. Now, if you had unlimited control over your siblings, slave to your every whim and desire because the unchallenged power turning people into toys usually brings, I think a lot of us would be tempted to just with them.
Open wide.
This scene makes sense. Bronson would mess with them because he's about 10 and alone with something unimaginably powerful. I don't know if I'd go for the force feeding of porridge, but this is a kids show. Not like we can use them to rob banks or maybe enter them into robot wars. Bronson gets porridge on the controls, breaking them because the only inventor that would protect against porridge is Wallace. They go nuts and rush out with the brains, then run back to the lab from their house for no reason, apparently without bumping into anything, and collapse there on the floor. I like to think they're following the signal from something else, like someone's trying to change the channel on their TV, or can't figure out why their RC won't go while the kids with the crap Cylon cosplay run around in circles. The bucket with the twins' brains flies out of the building on a rocket ship that happened to be there because... I guess this was a science show, so that guy's gonna be annoyed, and lands in the local dump. And finally, we have a decent precedent for the rest of the episode, right? The brains need to get home and Bronson needs to find them. Great! So Bronson will try for ages to get to the brains and where they are. They'll struggle to survive in the rubbish tip. Cool! So now we have tension. Weird tension.
Right. According to my calculations on the rocket's trajectory, the relative humidity, and the prevailing wind conditions, it should land right about here.
Great. The tip.
Oh, he already knows. He could work it out. Okay, so if we're not doing the plot which I predicted, what are we doing instead? Sticking 2 fingers up to reality, apparently. Okay, I can dig it. So the possible peril we set up briefly of them being lost and possibly about to dry out and be lost forever is completely forgotten about as 2 brains hop down the road in Australia on a hot looking day. They mentioned earlier that you've got to keep the brains moist, right?
Dehydration will be an issue, so if you find them, be sure to keep them moist.
They also need blood, oxygen, and to stop being smacked around so much, but okay, sod it. We're in magic world now. This is all magic. They never go to pools of water while they travel across country without any limbs, so they ought to shrivel up like cauliflowers under the Aussie sun. Unless they're intellect devourers or they are powerful telekinetics, this is just stupid. It's a brain. If my brain could do that, I'd pop out to the top of my skull every time I got tickled. Can other organs do other things? I bet livers play a mean bass. Maybe the pancreas can back him up on the oboe. Oh no, the super brains have got to try and get across town without being killed. How will they do it? I'll tell you how. With bullshit!
That's what I call a mental leap.
Do.
Please don't eat me. I'm not nutritious.
Don't worry, you're not crazy. I see it too. 2 brains riding a chicken carcass. Yeah, world's famous. I have no idea what's going on anymore. Bronson finds them by pure bloody chance and gets them under wraps. After a joke you know they've been saving up specifically for the right moment.
Oh no. I've squeezed my brains out. Oh, woozy.
Bronson gets the brains back to the lab. But shock horror! The bodies are missing and Anthony is trapped in a cupboard. Who would do it? Is it generic bullies?
What more could you want? Cool drink, maybe? Bingo. Yeah, take this.
Well, of course someone's going to steal them, because the characters are vulnerable and the show likes to grind their main character's dignity into the dirt when it can, and these boys are one-dimensional monsters. The connotations that these characters have been robbed of all agency to act and are now nothing but machines to people that are ignorant of the ethics of what they're doing is something that's trying to be caked in wacky hijinks. They were sentient, and now they're not. Any other show would make this part creepy or scary. I think that show's Buffy. Here's a thought. Wouldn't it have made just as much sense to explore another idea in this scenario? If you can take out and put brains back in, what if you mix that up? You can't tell me this show couldn't get plenty of mileage out of someone having to live in another's shoes for a bit. Well, the bully's controls are overridden by a... Wow. That is an old joystick and a ray gun dish? You want me to laugh at these Dr. Wily devices you're cobbling together, huh? They give the bullies what for and scamper off to the lab. There, they put the brains back, but oh no!
Back! Oh, what joy, what rapture!
Anth, we've got to stop meeting like this.
I forgive you. And I've missed you so much.
Ha ha! Finally, that's a cool idea, right? So, now a character gets to explore another person's life and they usually get to know a little bit more about the others in the process, you know, character growth and all that. Yay! Not yay! We only have less than 10 minutes left, so here it's a lame setup for a slightly naff punchline because, and trust me, this is real, Anthony read from a book of Viking love spells earlier that have been playing a role in many of the stories presented in Series 3, and it made Linda fall in love with Anthony. But, ho, Linda's in Pete's body now, so it's super awkward. Yeah. You couldn't do something with swapped bodies? Okay, there is an episode which is like this, but this would be different. Maybe link that whole idea of twin telepathy together by each twin having to handle being each other. I know it's a little bit more old hat, but you can't bash out a few decent gags about that? I know this is likely more of a modern concern, but how easy would it be to write in a queer angle where both characters prefer being themselves but attempt to alter the appearance to suit themselves better because this joke is unintentionally setting off my queer text reading alarm right now? That would probably be kind of subtle if you did it literally, but hey, brain hopping, farting around town, and the majesty of the chicken riding scene needed to be there. I get it. Art like that doesn't just come along every day. You have to show those sort of things, of course. Australia and UK needed to see the majesty of two brains riding on a bloody chicken, for goodness sake. The lesson for today is that Bronson is a danger to society, so of course he accidentally sucks out the brains of Anthony, Pete and Linda so that he can have a third over for porridge. Anthony's dead now, right? He doesn't have a brain or a helmet, so he's dead. End of story. He has ceased to be and expired to meet his... No, he's in later scenes, perfectly fine. Then how does this scenario work? Does the body just sit there wondering where the input went when you take away the brain? It shuts down almost immediately normally. Otherwise, decapitating someone would be just a handicap to hat wearing. Bullies come in because they want their meat puppets back. Bronson finally unleashes his powers of chaos on someone worthy of it and sucks one of the bullies' brains out, which scares them off, and they promise to leave them alone if they put the bully's brain back into his body, out of concern for their friend and their fallen comrade, of course. No, that would imply that someone actually gives a flying monkeys about someone's well-being in this episode. No. Instead, the empty-headed human being is entered into the school science fair as a project. Obviously they win, not because they're protagonists, but because they created a method of enslaving humanity, so you appease them, or you get to be in a pickle jar for the rest of your life too. There, a little more context for my friends, and the brony forum I run on how I became the weirdo I am today. Round the Twist is generally decent for its genre. There's duds in there, sure, but I had to talk about Brainless, in a show full of imagination and ballsy attitudes to what they think will be fine to show to kids. Brainless always stood out from all the other episodes. It's muddled, confused on how to fill up its time, and resorts to yodeling while brains fly around. I think you could have made it stronger, but there's other episodes that are simple, but allow the idea of the centre to go entirely mad within it. Here they either had too many ideas that didn't know how to connect properly, or one big idea that didn't fill up nearly as much screen time as they'd hoped. Round the Twist endures to this day in the form of a YouTube channel that houses all of the episodes from all 4 seasons of the show. Check it out and you'll be amazed at what they could get away with in an effort to be the weirdest show on television. There, right. Wait, why is the queer text reading alarm going off? Oh, put him down!